Good evening, friends. Okay. Naive is simply means it was more descriptive. So, like a science which is underdeveloped, a discipline which is like just a mere description, it is not a science. So, they were mostly descriptive, that is naive. They were not explanatory and analytical. And in the second stage, what they become critical, that is, they ultimately begin to explain the phenomena, interlink the phenomena. ठीक है. Any difference between Hettner's chorology and Hartshorne's areal differentiation? Not much difference. It was just a application. The difference is Hettner's, in terms of, when you are talking about the method and approach, there was no difference actually. But you can definitely say that Hettner had more influence of Vidal in terms of the human environment relationship. So he was not a hardcore environmental determinist. Okay. On the other hand, if you talk about Hartshorne was a very clear environmental determinist. Okay. But when it comes to the method of regionalization was similar. ठीक है. Okay. So we were talking about the third phase. Yes or no? I'll continue from there. Tell me. We were talking about the third phase, that was phase 3, decline of regional geography. Phase 3. Now, if we look into this phase 3, number of important developments occurred during this phase 3. Very important aspect of this phase 3 was that there was severe criticism rose against areal differentiation. We have already seen, and one of the most important critique came from posthumously published Schaeffer's paper, Exceptionalism in Geography. And in this paper, Schaeffer had argued for rejection of, he provided a critique of exceptionalism and areal differentiation, and had argued that geographers, if they want to ultimately save the status of the discipline and avert the crisis of identity, याद है हमने पहले भी बात किया है, वी हैव टॉक्ड ऑलरेडी अबाउट दिस, दैट ड्यूरिंग दिस पीरियड ज्योग्राफी वॉज फेसिंग अ काइंड ऑफ क्राइसिस ऑफ आइडेंटिटी. डू यू रिमेंबर दैट? And what was one of the basic reasons why geography was facing this crisis of identity? कोई बता सकता है मुझे? Yes, it didn't contribute in the war efforts, and as a result, it was seen that the utility of the study of geography for the society was very limited. So, Schaeffer argued number of things and argued for rejection of the regional approach and adoption of he argued for rejection of areal differentiation approach and exceptionalism identity of geography. ठीक है? And ultimately he favored or he advocated adoption of a quantitative approach based on positivistic approach. Based on positivistic approach. ठीक है? So he favored a quantitative type of geography, and this geography would definitely be which type? It would be systematic type of geography rather than regional geography. So here we are going to discuss what were the main things that Schaeffer outlined in this paper, and you can understand during this period very important person in the American geography, tallest in fact figure of American geography at that time was Richard Hartshorne, and Hartshorne was a proponent of the areal differentiation approach and exceptionalism. So very clearly, when Schaeffer was criticizing in his paper areal differentiation approach and exceptionalism, he was indirectly criticizing Hartshorne. Okay? So Hartshorne had to answer the ideas put forward or the questions put forward by Schaeffer. So later on, Hartshorne also what he did, he wrote several papers, not one but several papers, and through those papers what he did, he tried to answer the questions raised by Schaeffer in his paper. Okay? So this debate which occurred in this period of 1953, it was very crucial juncture in deciding the fate of regional approach in geography. And we find that after this, it seemed like Schaeffer ultimately won in this debate, and regional geography was relegated to the background, despite the fact that there was lots of other works. Other people also came up with more better type of approaches of regional geography. Despite that, ultimately it was found that regional geography was relegated to the background in geographical studies. Okay, so let us talk about what was basically this. So he pointed out three things. Schaeffer paper, you see here, it is already written, so I am not going to write anything more here. So three things were there, and you see here, Schaeffer outlined in the first part of his paper about the nature of science, and then defined the peculiar characteristics of geography as a social science. He argued that the exceptionalist claim of geography was an arrogance or sign of arrogance. According to him, science is characterized by explanations which require laws. Hence, if geography is to be conceived as a science, it should be concerned with formulation of universal laws governing spatial distribution of geographical phenomena. Okay, so that was the first in his paper, first part he talked about. So I'll just explain what this was all about. See, you have to understand that when we are talking about science, I have talked about this idea of science even in the foundation, the starting classes जो हमने की थी. But here again I will deliberate a little bit. So if you talk about what is science, there are two viewpoints about science. Okay, one viewpoint says that science is in the subject matter. Science is in the subject matter. Okay. So why in the subject matter? It simply says that some subject matters are so static that same results occur in them again and again. Same results are occurring in them again and again. So for example, if I drop this pen, where it will go? If I drop this pen, where it will go? It will go down. If I come to your home and drop this pen, where it will go? It will again go down. If I went in a period before independence and drop this pen, where it will go? It will again go down. I go to any part of earth, I drop this pen, again it will go down. So you see here, what is happening? The same result is occurring again and again, because the phenomena is so much static. So can I say, thus here there is predictability. Predictability is found, and here as a result, universal laws and theories can be formulated. Theories can be formulated. and this can also be used for prediction of future. Okay, so one idea about science is that science is in the subject matter, but there is other idea which rejects this claim and says that science is in the methodology adopted. Science is in the methodology adopted. So this second idea claims that if we look into the history of the sciences, पहले भी इसके बारे में I have talked about. So if you look into the history of the sciences, there were scientists who were considered as scientists, but they talked about just redundant nonsense. Many of the things which they talked about, they didn't make any sense. Why? Because they didn't follow some of the key fundamentals on which the science should be based, fundamental methods. Like science only focuses upon those things which can be directly validated through empiricism. Okay? So when the scientists started to do this, when they started to ultimately focus upon this aspect that focused only upon objective phenomena rather than the subjective phenomena which they were earlier doing, they were making stories, hypotheses which many times didn't had any claims, validity. Once they started to do that, over a period of time, ultimately they converted to what we call it as them today as the natural sciences. In the past, even natural sciences were like social sciences, very much hypothetical. Okay, like for example, you talk about the idea of geology. So do we know already that geology or geomorphology, what was the early phase of geology or geomorphology, dominated by which approach? It was dominated by the idea of catastrophism. And catastrophism idea was basically that the landforms of the earth, the major landforms of the earth have been formed by some special processes. So it was a kind of continuation of the period of the dark ages when this special person was none other than God. But during the Renaissance, when rationality became the base of society, they started to explain these phenomena with respect to some more logical things like meteorite impact, earthquakes, volcanism. So they talked about that these catastrophic forces has led to formation of these very large landforms of the earth, like ocean basins, like very tall mountains, etc., etc. Okay, but again we see today that this catastrophic claim cannot be validated. We cannot validate that the ocean basins are like craters which have been formed by meteorite impact. Okay, we cannot validate that. Okay. When the scientists, when the geologists began to focus upon the objective phenomena, when they started to look, okay, we can validate that. Suppose if a river is cutting in a day this much, if we calculate in millions of years, it would be able to cut through the mountains and create a huge valley. Okay, so this is what? This is an objective study. So when they started to become objective, when they adopted this objective methodology, then they ultimately became the sciences. Okay. So what is this second approach claims? Second approach claims that the science is not in subject matter but in methodology. That means even if the social sciences accept a methodology which is scientific methodology, over a period of time, what they would become? Tell me. over a period of time, what they would become? Obviously, they would become science, social sciences, not natural sciences. We'll say it would be social sciences. Okay, so this second approach claimed that the natural sciences in their initial phase of development included several subjective claims which could not be validated. Only after they became objective in their approach after adoption of the scientific methods, they became modern sciences. So what it means that, in other words, if social sciences also accept the scientific methods based on objectivity and exclude the subjective issues from domain of study, what will happen to them? They would also attain the status of science. Okay, so this was the basic idea. Now tell me, Schaeffer was proponent of which of these approaches, the first approach or the second approach? From what we have discussed till now, Schaeffer would have been proponent of which approach, the first approach or the second approach? It was very clearly the second approach. So he believed that the science is essentially in what? It is in method. That means even social sciences can become scientific and attain the status. He was already an economist. So he had seen that how economy, which was focusing upon the numbers, more objective aspects, had much higher status in among the social sciences. Okay. So we will see that ultimately in economics, this idea of acquiring the scientific method which was at that time the positivistic method, came much earlier than other social sciences. So it was already very scientific. Okay. So they would also attain the status of science. So this was the basic idea of Schaeffer. So Schaeffer basically claimed that if you talk about geography, the claim of geography that it is exceptional discipline, claim of geographers was arrogant. And why he felt that it was arrogant? Because he believed that all sciences or all disciplines can claim that they are exceptional. All disciplines can claim that they are exceptional because they are doing something different. We know that mathematics is studying numbers. We know that physics is studying the laws which govern the matter. Chemistry is studying the internal structure of these laws, of this matter. Biology is concerned with the living beings' laws. So every discipline is doing what? Every discipline is studying something which is exceptional or different. So all of them can claim that they are exceptional. But exceptional and unique. He argued that, however, this uniqueness should not stop any discipline to adopt the scientific method. The scientific method based on logical positivism based on the logical positivism approach. Logical positivism approach. ठीक है. So we'll see what was logical positivism. आगे QR के अंदर आएगा. Logical positivism was the scientific philosophy which said that only thing that we can directly see through our senses, which can be directly validated, is truth and should be included as a part of knowledge. All other things, all the subjective phenomena should be excluded. So it was basically what logical positivism approach was for the scientific method. We have already talked about it. Was positivism or logical positivism was a realistic approach, a type of realistic approach. Okay. So he said that this uniqueness should not stop any discipline to adopt scientific methods based on logical positivism. And what he claimed that geographers, what they had to do? Geographers were already facing crisis of identity, facing crisis of identity should adopt or should try to become a science by adopting the logical positivism approach. And what they should do? They should formulate universal laws, models, theories in order to become like a science. ठीक है. So can we say first point जो उसने बात किया first part of the paper, are we clear with that? Yes or no? Then coming to the second part of the paper. So in the second part of the paper, what he said, he actually traced the origin of exceptionalism to Immanuel Kant. Origin of the term exceptionalism to Immanuel Kant, and further said that this exceptionalism was adopted by Hettner in his chorological approach. And then it was later adopted by Hartshorne in his areal differentiation approach. ठीक है. So this was his claim. Now, why according to him it was faulty? Because he believed that when Kant was working, the modern scientific method, which is superior, When Kant was working, the modern scientific method, which is superior, was not developed. At that time, there were no modern sciences. At best, there were cosmologies. But cosmologies are not sciences. ठीक है. Science is always based upon what? Theories and laws which have been validated. Cosmologies can be they are just at best are careful contemplation of the known world. So they are just careful contemplation of the known world or the phenomena, but they are not science. They have not been validated. That means during that time there was no theories, laws still were unknown. There were just what? Hypotheses which were not validated. We have already seen what is the difference between hypothesis and theory. Okay? So he claimed that it is wrong to use such archaic methods in modern world where there is availability of superior scientific methods to study and approaches to study the phenomena. ठीक है. So he claimed that it was wrong on the part of Hettner to adopt such old methods when these old methods were already archaic and they were not so much useful for the modern times. ठीक है. So if I go back and ultimately talk about that I will be using, suppose there is some problem, someone is not feeling well. ठीक है. So you must have heard about that. वो झाड़ फूंक वाले गांव में होते थे. They used to be there. So you must have heard about them, and there are people who still claim that they actually work. Maybe they work, we don't know. We have to be scientific, we cannot reject that, because there are transfers of energy which people are able to do. But suppose if there is someone sick and I take that person to that jhadphunk wale baba, will it be correct approach on part of me, or will it be correct if I actually take that person to a hospital where a proper diagnosis of the known problem can be done and accordingly the medical care can be taken. So same thing was here being talked about by Schaeffer. According to Schaeffer, Hettner was doing something like to in modern world where there was big hospitals, doctors, so much science developed, he was going to jhadphunk wale baba, and which is again not very correct to follow. And this same mistake was done by Hartshorne as he adopted his approach from Hettner. ठीक है. Are we clear about this? Second point, what he was talking about. In the third part of his paper, he provided an advocacy for geography and geographers. He provided an advocacy for geography and geographers. So what was this essentially advocacy for geography and geographers that was provided by him? He believed ultimately that geography is a spatial science. spatial science. And in spatial science, what is required? It is required that, which requires formulation of morphological laws, theories and models. Theories and models. So morphological is which is more visual type. Okay, which is how morphology is the shape of how things look. Like for example, we have to make a model of how landforms develop. So initially the slope is steep, then what happens? It becomes more gentle, then ultimately more gentle, then ultimately more gentle. So this type of modeling is what? It is morphological models. So it requires formulation of morphological laws, theories and models. Okay, and according to him, formulation of such morphological models and theories in the initial phase is difficult. It was difficult. Thus, what he believed, that in the early phase, what geographers need to do? Geographers need to import process based models and theories, or you write models, theories and laws from their sister disciplines. And keep on working towards their own development of morphological models and theories. ठीक है. So you remember all these three aspects, which particularly the third aspect, which was advocacy of Schaeffer. In fact, we will see that when quantitative revolution developed, and in the first phase of quantitative revolution, we will see that it was from 1950 to 1963. The beginning phase of the quantitative revolution, geographers mainly did what? They mainly imported models and theories from various disciplines into geography. Like you see number of them. Like for example, we'll see in models and theories topic of our syllabus, there are topics like von Thunen model, topics like Weber's industrial location theory, topics like central place theory. We find that all these three theories, they were originally part of economics. So there was a branch of economics, regional economics, in which they were developed. Only it was later on that geographers imported them into geography. ठीक है. Similarly, we'll talk about morphology of city models like Burgess concentric zone models, sectoral model, multiple nuclei models. Okay, so we will see that again they were never part of actually geography. They were originally developed in sociology and they were imported into geography. Similarly, gravity models, they were imported from physics. ठीक है. Several principles of locational analysis, they were imported from geometry. Several statistical methods which were developed, multiple regression, correlation, all these were basically imported from where? They were imported from geometry and statistics, mathematics. Okay, so initially we will see in the first phase of quantitative revolution, this was what geographers did, and you can understand that how much was powerful the advocacy of Schaeffer, how much his views became popular in geography. Okay, in fact, we will later see that some teachers make this mistake, and I don't know, some of the teachers, some of students in 500 plus, they came to me and talked about that quantitative revolution. They were taught in their classes that quantitative revolution began in 1830s, and the teacher taught about that the phase was first phase from 1830 to 1950, then second phase from 1950 to 1972, and then after that phase. Again, this is very wrong conception. Whoever was teaching didn't know properly what was basically quantitative revolution in geography, because we know very well that these models ultimately became part of geography only during the period which was 1950 to 70. This was the period when all these theories, models were adopted into geography. Okay. So very clearly, quantitative revolution started in geography from 1950. At best, you can say post Second World War, but you cannot go beyond that. You cannot go before that and say that ultimately quantitative revolution started. No, Pushkar here is saying from the LS group, logical positivism started in 1830s. Very wrong. It was positivism which started in 1830s. Logical positivism was a movement which was born in Vienna in the period which was after First World War. Mainly it became very popular movement in 1930s. So it was also referred to as Vienna Circle, because the main proponents used to meet at Vienna. Okay? So no, it never started. In geography, it was adopted only in the post Second World War period. And when I am using the word geography, essentially I mean human geography. Okay? So this was his advocacy for the geographers. Now you can understand he has presented number of logical claims here in his paper Exceptionalism in Geography, and by these claims he was essentially challenging the most popular figure of geography of that time. It was none other than Richard Hartshorne. So Hartshorne, आप समझ सकते हो कि सबके Hartshorne के पास अपने चमचे थे. So there were followers of Hartshorne, and they basically talked to Hartshorne that no, this is very wrong, you should reply. So he was forced to reply ultimately to all these claims which were made by her. In fact, he was also hurt by the claims which were made by Schaeffer. So in fact, we'll see that Schaeffer, how he tried to tackle Schaeffer. So we'll talk about the reply of Hartshorne. Hartshorne. Jubilee is asking process-based models, laws, theories means. Come on यार, इतना तो थोड़ा सा लॉजिक लगा लो ना, इतने दिनों से पढ़ रहे हैं. Didn't we talk about that there are two type of when Kant was classifying knowledges, do you remember? When Kant was classifying knowledges, he classified history and geography as exceptional. Why he classified them as exceptional? Because they didn't had any own subject matter. Okay? So all other sciences had what? All other disciplines had their own subject matter. So in those subject matter, what they are essentially studying? They are studying processes. Like gravity is essentially what? It is a process. Okay? So that is what is process based. Formulating on the basis of process. Here geography had to formulate because geography was studying something which was more visible part of the surface of earth. That was claimed to be the scope of geography. So geography had to formulate models and theories which could explain this knowledge related with the visible part of the surface of the earth. Like you see, what is difference between geology and geomorphology? Geology is a more process based discipline, okay, where it is more concerned with the study of endogenetic and exogenetic processes. So it is more concerned with the study of the focus. Its focus is more on these processes. On the other hand, geomorphology is part of geography. So it is more concerned about how the land forms, land and form, shape of the land. So it is more concerned about explaining how the landforms change, how they develop. Can you understand what I am saying? So that is basically the process based models, laws and theories. Okay. So we will see that most of these which were adopted into geography, most of these were like process based. Many of them which were adopted. Do we have to mention years in answer, origin of concept? कहीं पर आता है? Tell me. Is it being directly asked? No. Ideally speaking, if there is requirement, if you mention, it is very good. Practically speaking, if you have not so brilliant mind like you are a normal person like me, you don't have photographic memory like me, ठीक है ना? I am also a normal person जिसके पास photographic memory नहीं है. So such type of people will more rely on their own strength, and which is the concepts, understanding of the concepts. Okay, there are so many other things also, more important things to remember. So if you can, no doubt you should remember. If you cannot, no problem. Okay. So what was the reply of Hartshorne? So Hartshorne replied each of the three claims by three separate papers. Okay. So first reply, if we talk about on the first claim, what was the reply? So the reply of Hartshorne was to Schaeffer that he was firm believer in the thought that geography is what geographers have made it to be. Geography is what geographers have made it to be. In other words, what he was claiming that geography is a synthesis of ideas and approaches, and all of these together make the subject of geography. ठीक है, they together make the subject of geography. It is, you cannot say that one is not and the other one is more part of geography. ठीक है. So can you say that actually Hartshorne is very correct when he is saying this? Didn't both Hartshorne as well as Hettner before him, didn't both of them agreed about this synthesis? Haven't we seen, didn't I emphasize upon when I was talking about from their all these people's original writing, all of the geographers' original writing, that they at the same time accepted that the aim of geography was also to develop science. Whether it was Vidal, whether it was Hettner, almost all of them had this basic objective of development of science of geography. In fact, Hettner and Hartshorne were two people who were very, very clear in their thought. In fact, before him, Richthofen were associated with the development of chorology. So they were very clear in their thought that ultimately there should be development of science. They were very clear in their thought that both ideographic and nomothetic are important part of geography. How they were complementary to each other. ठीक है. So can you see that he is very clearly able to recognize that वो बाहर से वो शर्मा जी आकर के वो फूट डालने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. Do you remember that example? Schaeffer was not a geographer. So he was never aware of that synthesis element of geography. He was not aware of that synthesis element of geography. And he tried to create what? Dichotomy type of tendency. He tried to show that, see, Hettner, Hartshorne, what these people are doing, they are rejecting the scientific approach, which is ultimately the one which will be saving geography in this difficult times. ठीक है. So geography is what? Geography is synthesis of ideas and approaches, and all of these together make up the subject of geography. And he very clearly said that Schaeffer's ideas are one among these approaches which have been propounded earlier also by several geographers. Can I say, जब हमने बात किया था, if you remember, when we were talking about German school, French school, American school, didn't we see that many of them were systematic and how they believed that science should be? Like, for example, take the case of Ratzel. Yes or no? So wasn't Ratzel also talking about the same thing? A similar type of idea, a systematic approach. Wasn't Davis also talking about the same thing? ठीक है. So Schaeffer's ideas were just one idea among the multitude of ideas that form the geography. ठीक है. And to claim that only his ideas are superior is arrogant, to say the least. To say the least. ठीक है. So Hartshorne gave a very proper reply to Schaefer, and he was very clear that I am not arrogant, you are actually arrogant in claiming that only you are correct. And he was very clear because he was also one person who never claimed that geography is just in geography there should not be development of systematic geography. There should be development of systematic geography. He never denied this idea. ठीक है. It was not his mistake that the people who were pursuing the development of systematic geography, they couldn't develop systematic human geography. So it was not his mistake. What he was doing, he was trying to develop regional geography and he was working well in his own part. ठीक है. So that was the first reply which was given by Hartshorne to Schaefer. Second reply, and second reply was that in another paper what he did, he presented another paper, and in this paper he tried to quote, or tried लिखना ठीक नहीं है, he quoted several writings with respect to Hettner in order to prove that Hettner developed the idea of exceptionalism independent of Kant. Independent of Kant. So one of the occasions he is quoting a conversation which occurred between Hettner and a academician who was sitting when Hettner was giving a lecture. So Hettner was talking about his idea of chorology, explaining his idea of chorology, and another academician who was sitting in the audience. So that person asked him that, do you know that your ideas are very, very similar to Kant? And the reply of Hettner was that I am not aware of this, of the ideas of Kant. If it is so, because Kant was mostly by that time in Germany particularly, he was more taken as a philosopher. So Hettner said that if it is so, then I am highly elated. I am highly, very much happy because Kant's status in the academics is very, very tall. Okay. So this conversation is a very clear-cut proof of the fact that Hettner was actually not aware when he was developing his idea of exceptionalism. He was not aware of the Kant's idea of exceptionalism, and he developed independently this idea. So thus Hettner reached same conclusions on nature of geography as Kant in times when modern sciences had already developed. modern sciences had already developed. Okay, so he was trying to reject this claim of Schaeffer that this idea was adopted, imported by Hettner. Okay, so he believed that no, it was not so. Hettner developed it independently. So, two people in two different time periods coming to the same conclusion about geography cannot be a coincidence. There must be something unique, something exceptional in the subject of geography which they are trying to claim. Can you understand this second claim? Second reply? Yes or no? So, third reply, if we talk about. So, there was third advocacy which was done by Schaeffer in his paper. So, third reply was through another paper which was presented by Hartshorne. So, in this another paper, Hartshorne claimed that said that by advocating the difficulties inherent in, और advocating ना लिखो, by accepting लिखो, by accepting the difficulties inherent in formulation of morphological models and theories and advocating import of process based models and theories from other disciplines what in a way Schaeffer was doing. Schaeffer was preaching the same exceptionalism which he sought to destroy. ठीक है. So he was himself accepting that geography is a spatial science and thus geography requires to develop morphological models and theories which are quite different from what is being done in the other sciences. All other sciences are process based sciences. So he was himself accepting this exceptional nature of geography, and then he was again, on the other hand, he was also criticizing this exceptional nature of geography. ठीक है. So again, he is very clearly trying to show that even Schaeffer accepts that geography has some exceptional characteristics which is not found in other disciplines. ठीक है. So this was the debate which occurred between Schaeffer and Hartshorne. And debate, we are saying it was actually not a debate in a sense, because the paper Exceptionalism in Geography was posthumously published. So Schaeffer by that time was already dead, and maybe if he was alive, we would have seen more severe debate between the two greats who were there, and maybe many of the things would have become more clear. Like here, you see, both have their own valid points. Okay, so this is one very important development which occurred during this period. There were several other developments which were occurring during this period. So you further write that do we accept the exceptional view today? We'll come to that point. अभी बात करेंगे. We have not reached to that point where we can talk about this. So there were some other development. So during this period, what happened? There regional approach. So during this period, there were some other attempts to develop regional approach in geography. In other words, now what was there? There were several other attempts were made to save regional approach because regional approach was going down. ठीक है, in geography. And number of people wrote several things about regional geography, like for example, various regional studies were written by Gottman. So Gottman was another geographer who wrote various regional studies during this period, and one of his most famous work was description of Virginia state. It is at mid-century, and in this Virginia at mid-century, he tried to show that how ultimately during this period what were the processes at work in Virginia. So it is considered as one of the very fine examples of how regional writings should be there. Okay, so Virginia at mid-century. Similarly, there were other geographers. One very important was Ackerman. And if you talk about Ackerman, he brought fresh ideas to the regional geography in accordance with, ये लिखा नहीं है मटेरियल में, so you should be writing this part, in accordance with the new conception of geography as a social science. Geography as a social science. ठीक है. And if we talk about what he did, he defined regions. He defined regions as a composite phenomena, which has resulted which has resulted from man's occupants of the earth. The focus, according to him, the focus of regional geography should be a definitive approach, should be a definitive approach ne description. Definitive description of the social and physical forces that shape a region in time. That shape a region in time as they react each on each other. ठीक है sir, please same way tell us what to note down, what is necessary or not there in notes. I cannot, matlab, I think that when I am deliberating in the class, I am improving upon everything which is written in the notes. Yes or no? If you have read the notes, handouts which have been given to you, I am always improving upon whatever is written in the notes. ठीक है. So it is up to you. If you believe your mind is very sharp and you would be able to remember all the things which I talked about in the class, very good. If you feel you are like a common miserable bichara person like me, then I think you should be writing most of the things, jotting down. If I can jot in the class, even after being a teacher, if I am such lethargic, I think a lethargic person can do so much hard work. You can also do, I believe. And that is absolutely correct what Amit is saying, that I also have always felt that when you are writing, it keeps you more attentive because you are doing number of things. You are listening, you are writing. Okay, so it makes you better attentively. Okay, so depends upon what you want to write, what you don't want to write. Okay, so Ackerman here was trying to do what? He was trying to redefine regional geography. Okay, and in this regional geography, he is trying to focus that regional geography should be trying to describe or explain what the social and physical forces that shape the region in time as they react each on each other. That means what are these physical forces are what? The interrelations between the physical and human or the cultural elements. So regional geography should be concerned about what? Description of these interrelations. Okay? These are the forces which are connecting to us to each other. Like for example, suppose I am talking about South India. Suppose I talk about South India. It is a tropical region. Now tell me, can I say that in this tropical region, the climatic conditions are such that other crops can be, many type of crops can be grown? Yes or no? Many other forms, type of tropical crops can be grown. But can I, if I have to describe this region, can I say I would describe this region as a paddy region? Yes or no? Particularly the areas which have heavy precipitation, they would be described as paddy region. So why? Can I say it is not just physical geography, there are some cultural forces, cultural factors also involved? Okay, so that is what he is talking about. Study that should be, according to him, this should be the focal point of the study of the regional geography. So Ackerman, what he did, he tried to present a future approach to region as a system. Very important point. Region as a system. He speaks of or spoke of hierarchy or hierarchies, लिखो hierarchies of regions. Hierarchies of regions, which is akin to or which anticipate a perception of systems and subsystems. Systems and subsystems. He sees regions as built up from components. Which are to be interlinked logically and chronologically. to develop a proper geographical understanding of a region. Understanding of a region. ठीक है. So Ackerman is basically what he was trying to show that how regional geography already was talking about the things which developed in quantitative revolution. Okay, and one of the aspects of quantitative revolution, if you have seen our syllabus of human geography, in models and theories, the first thing is which is written is system analysis. Have you seen the syllabus? Tell me. There is one topic by the name of system analysis, and system analysis is considered as one of the tools or methods which was adopted as a part of quantitative revolution. And here Ackerman is very clearly trying to show that how already in regional geography, regional geographers has been practicing the system analysis, and he tries to ultimately provide a future path also to regional geographers, that regional geography is not just description, but it is about interlinking of the components as we do in the system analysis. ठीक है. सो इससे एक पॉइंट पर आते हैं, एंड दिस यू विल हैव टू रिमाइंड मी लेटर व्हेन विल स्टडी द सिस्टम्स एनालिसिस टॉपिक, which would be just after quantitative revolution. ठीक है. So this question I am giving you, and that time I will explain. Explore the concept of regions as, or concept of region as a system. Very chance that this question can be asked, because both these are part and parcel of our syllabus. Okay, so this is one of the questions which I normally take up in my 500 plus classes. So again, it helps me explain how they are very similar, and here I later talk about how Shorley talks about two type of systems: hard systems, soft systems. Okay, so till I explain system analysis, we will not be able to ultimately understand this question. That is why I am not taking up this right now. ठीक है, but you know very well कि मैं भूल जाऊंगा. So who will take the responsibility to remind me? This question when we'll finish up with system analysis topic. ठीक है. So if you talk about that, was basically the approach of Ackerman. So what I can conclude, can I say one conclusion about Ackerman can be that Ackerman tried to provide a new synthetic approach for regional geography. Approach for the regional geography. ठीक है. And in this new synthetic approach for regional geography, which was based upon scientific principles of system analysis. ठीक है, so can you see he's basically trying to do what? He's trying to save the future of regional geography. ठीक है, so this was the attempt made by Ackermann, but there was others, if you talk about, who were again still working, and they continued or they further elaborated this idea which was first presented by Ackermann. And very, very important, in fact this name is, it is Wittelsay. And Ackermann, which, yes, we'll talk about. Ackermann was the person who has talked about various optimum over under population in geography. He has in fact given a classification of population resource regions. ठीक है, a conception of population resource regions. So Wittelsay, so वो बाद में population geography में आएगा. So if you talk about Wittelsay and his idea of compage, his idea of compage. So Wittelsay के बारे में हमने already देखा है. Wittelsay was another American geographer who was a regional geographer. Now if you talk about Wittelsay, Wittelsay was appointed as chairman of committee of regional geography. It was a same type of idea, Balveer, but हायरार्की दोनों जगह लिखा हुआ है. तो एग्जैक्टली हायरार्की का मतलब क्या होता है? इट इज सेम थिंग दैट वन इज पार्ट ऑफ द अदर. सो वन इज स्मॉलर, अदर इज बिगर, लेकिन उसमें डिफरेंसेस भी हैं. सो उस पर इतना ज्यादा स्ट्रेस मत करो. सो अपॉइंटेड एज चेयरमैन ऑफ द कमिटी ऑफ रीजनल ज्योग्राफी ऑफ अमेरिका, and this committee was formulated to provide new directions to development of regional geography. Formulated to provide new directions to the development of regional geography, because during this period regional geography was so much criticized and it was seen that it is not the correct approach for development of geography, but there were geographers, बूढ़े शेर जिसे हम बोल सकते हैं, and young blood, all of the young blood which was coming, they were very much critical. They wanted to take the leadership in geography, but the already existing leaders, they all were, most of them were regional geographers. हमने देखा है how the Second World War, the interwar period, the period between First World War and Second World War, regional geography reached at its pinnacle. Do you remember that both the dominant approaches were regional approaches? One was areal differentiation, other was cultural determinism approach. So most of the main geographers, the leader geographers of this period were regional geographers, and they could very clearly see that how their ideas were severely criticized, and some of the criticism was also very logical criticism, because no one could deny the fact that geography led by regional approach couldn't provide much solution to the war efforts. It was not contributing much to the society. That means very clearly the utility of such approach was questionable, and that means something needed to change in geography. But they still were firm believer in the fact that if there was one approach which can provide the much needed synthesis in geography, which was the essence of geography, was the regional approach. So they didn't want to leave that regional approach. So what they tried to do, they tried to formulate a new type of regional geography or regional approach. Okay? And here, if you talk about, Whittlesey comes up with several ideas on the regional approach. ठीक है, एंड उसके बारे में हम बात करते हैं. एंड दिस कमिटी was again appointed in 1953 itself. So 1953 is so much eventful year that some of the geographers, they treat 1953 as the beginning year of quantitative revolution. ठीक है. And however, because many others are taking 1950, so मेरे notes में you will be finding that it is actually 1950 I have taken as the beginning year. ठीक है, because I will see that some efforts were already being done by people like Schaeffer etc. who were already working even before this 1953. That is why I have taken 1950 as the year. But many take 1953 as the watershed year where the quantitative revolution actually began. So if you talk about what was basically the ideas of Whittlesey, so what he did, he subjected the notion of region to a most profound analysis. And what he proposed, that regional geography, there were different categories of region. Proposed that there were different categories of regions by vertical categorization. For example, there can be single feature region, multiple feature region, and there can be a total region. ठीक है, there can be a total region. So by vertical categorization and by horizontal categorization. And two examples of horizontal categorization was, one was the case of uniform regions and the second was case of the nodal or functional regions. So there very clearly Whittlesey talked about that there can be various categories or various criteria of regionalization. Now, here what I am talking about, tell me, depending upon this, what we have written here, what do you believe was the Whittlesey's view of region? For him, regions were objective or subjective. So, he adhered to which viewpoint? Subjective viewpoint of regions or the objective viewpoints of region? Tell me. It was very clearly subjective viewpoint. Okay, so he, while he's saying this, he's trying to say what? That regionalization is a scientific tool of geographers whereby they classify the geographical space depending upon variety of criteria. So there can be vertical categorization regions or there can be horizontal categorization region. Like single feature region का एक example दे. Can you give one example of single feature region? Tell me. Can I say topographic region? Can it be said to be an example of single feature region? Yes, like Himalayas. Or linguistic. So, which is based upon one criteria. Multiple feature region बताओ. Can I say physiographic? Yes or no? Physiographic region is such an example. Physiography mein we have seen so many things are taken. So that is a multiple feature region. Others also, like for example, we'll see that Whittlesey's syllabus में हमारे है Whittlesey's agricultural regions. They are also multiple feature regions. ठीक है. Total region was the case of chorology, the pure chorological approach which was adopted by Hetners and others, that strict chorology. So you ultimately reach to a total region. Like for example, if you talk about total region, it can be said to be a kind of cultural region. Okay, so can you understand? You can take single criteria, multiple criteria, or all the criterias, all geographical criterias to be included. Okay. Similarly, uniform regions, here the criteria was different. Come on, yaar, we are not concerned about what are the features of the region. We are more concerned about whether on the basis of selected criteria there is similarity. So topographically, if I say Himalayas, topographically they are similar because they form mountains, young fold mountains. Okay. So by horizontal categorization, uniform regions where are regions where the focus is on what? Focus is on similarity with respect to chosen criteria. ठीक है. Nodal or functional region are where focus is on interlinkages. There might not be similar looking. ठीक है. Here that means uniform region is more about look. blocks visibility. Functional region is more about the interrelations which exist between places. Like for example, tell me, can I say that if I talk about Delhi NCR, so you must be aware that Delhi NCR is a big region and many villages are also part and parcel of the Delhi NCR. Now tell me, do they look like Delhi? Do they look like Delhi? No. Delhi is a very big city. They are villages. So physically they are dissimilar to Delhi. But what is the case? There is Delhi and they are interconnected with Delhi. As a result, we can say that it is what? It is NCR region. So can you understand the concept of nodal or functional regions? That is what is the nodal and functional region conception. Okay. So he is very clearly trying to reject the objective criteria of regionalization and he adopts the subjective criteria of regionalization. ठीक है. So if we talk about this, इसको लिख लेते हैं थोड़ा सा. So say thus Whittlesey rejected region as an objective entity. Region as an objective entity or reality. He saw it more as a device for selecting and studying areal groupings. Studying areal groupings of complex phenomena found on the earth. In his opinion, any segment of the earth may be termed as a region if it is homogeneous with regard to such an areal grouping. ठीक है. So very clearly he was trying to develop what? Regional sciences, and his approach was more pragmatic approach where he limited the regions or the regional approach. For him, regional approach was more about the purpose of study rather than something, a grand region existing already and geographers were to find those grand regions. So we can say thus Whittlesey tried to develop regional approach more practically, and in this practical approach the boundaries and regions are delimited, where boundaries and regions are delimited by a pragmatic goal. Thus, region is not an object but an intellectual concept. It is not self-determined or naturally given. Or naturally given, but an entity for the purpose of thought, created by selection of certain features that are relevant to an areal problem. ठीक है. So suppose I'll just give you example of what he's saying. Suppose my issue is the case of river pollution, suppose. And my other issue is with the case of urbanization management. Okay. So when I am talking about suppose river pollution, tell me which type of criteria I should better choose for these. Like हमने यहाँ पर अभी बात किया था uniform regions which look similar and nodal or functional regions. Tell me, if I have to solve the problem of river pollution, which of this criteria of regionalization would be more suitable? रिवर पॉल्यूशन के लिए for river pollution it would be uniform, and for urban management it would be nodal problem, nodal region. ठीक है. Tell me, आज के टाइम में we are talking about नमामि गंगे Namami Gange program that we have. Before that, Ganga action plan was there. Now tell me, when we are talking about these components or these program and sub programs within them like Yamuna action plan and all those which were there, what was the criteria which was chosen? Which type of region is chosen to solve the problem? Can I say in this case the drainage basin is the region? Yes or no? The drainage basin, Ganga drainage basin is the region, and Ganga drainage basin has one physical similarity. What is the physical similarity? That all the water that is present here, all of this water is flowing into one common point, and what is that common point? Ganga river. Yes or no? So here, when our problem was different, we are choosing a different criteria for regionalization. When our problem in hand is different, that is, we have to now manage urban areas. So we know urban areas, Delhi का हमने अभी example दिया. At the top there is smaller cities which are below Delhi, and उसके भी नीचे there are several small cities are there. उसके भी नीचे, I can keep on going. So can I say the flow is taking place from like this towards Delhi? People are migrating, although there is no similarity, physical similarity in them. But are they connected by various processes, various type of flows? So if I want to formulate a proper policy for Delhi, will I have to look into this relationship? I will have to focus on this relationship. Okay? So very clearly, tell me, Whittle say, can I say, tried to provide an applied angle to the regional approach? Yes or no? He tried to provide an applied angle to the regional approach. In fact, what he did, he identified clearly that the problem of regional geography had been its tendency to follow the rigid approach where all geographical criteria are to be included in regionalization process. In regionalization process. ठीक है? So what he did, as a solution he proposed compage, concept of compage. So what was very important feature of compage? Compage was simply, it was first, it was based upon the subjective view of regions. In other words, what are compages? If you have seen the previous year papers, you know compage question पूछा जा चुका है. I think it was 2016 में पूछा था. In other words, compage is a region which is demarcated on the basis of selected criteria. On the basis of selected criteria. ठीक है, फर्स्ट पॉइंट समझ में आ गया. इट इज नॉट दैट ऑब्जेक्टिव रीजन, इट इज व्हाट, इट इज अ सब्जेक्टिव रीजन. ये पॉइंट समझ में आ गया. फर्स्ट पॉइंट अबाउट कॉम्पेजेस. Second very important point about compages was these criteria are chosen on the basis of purpose in hand or problem in hand. In other words, the criteria to be chosen are not fixed and rigid. ठीक है. Thus, if you talk about compage, was basically essentially what? It was essentially a multiple criteria region. अभी हमने 3 तरह के रीजन्स की बात की थी. मल्टीपल क्राइटेरिया रीजन. ठीक है. And multiple criteria region was essentially what? Which was based upon partial chorology. Partial chorology approach. समझ में आया? फुल कोरोलॉजी अप्रोच कब होगी? Complete or full chorology approach would be when we are following that strict method. All elements को एक एक करके लेना in same sequence there, that is the pure chorology approach. So he is using that approach but partially. So he adopted a partial chorology approach. ठीक है. So that is second very important feature. Third very important feature of compage was that compage is a humanistic region. In other words, that criteria should be chosen so as to make regional study more relevant or simply applied. In other words, a more problem solving approach. A more problem solving approach. So criteria should be able to reflect the relationship of the region to the humans. Okay. So criteria should be able to reflect the relationship of the region to the humans. ब्रैकेट में लिख सकते हैं which is core of human geography. So what is the core of human geography? The core of human geography is to study human environment relationship. So each of these regions should be based on what? That human environment relationship. So COM pages are essentially what they are, humanistic regions. ठीक है? So that is one. Then fourth important characteristic of the COM pages is COM pages exist at several hierarchies. They exist at several hierarchies. ठीक है. So अगर मैं hierarchy की बात करूं, for example, he gives a hierarchy that the COM pages at lowest level are, there is locality, local level, small regions, he calls them as locality. और इसको मैं इस तरह से बनाता हूँ, it would make more sense to you. So there is locality. ठीक है. So locality is what? It is a small functional region like for example village market area or some kind of functional neighborhood of the town. ठीक है. So that is what we call it as locality. Then several localities together form a district. And district is what? Several localities which will have similarities. They would ultimately become one district. Then there is, above that there is province. And finally there is, at highest level there is realm. ठीक है. So like for example, if I just talk about this locality, district, province and realm, tell me, like for example realm, can I say there is the Indian realm? Yes or no? There is Indian realm. Then can I divide Indian realm into three major provinces? That is the three major provinces which are interconnected to each other: the mountain, the plains and the plateau. Then they are further divided into several districts, We have already seen Himalayas. There is Western Himalayas, Eastern Himalayas. Even within Himalayas, there are smaller areas. Okay. Same thing, plains. We know there is Gangetic plains. Even in Gangetic plains, upper Gangetic, middle Gangetic, lower Gangetic. So these major provinces are further divided into districts, and these districts are further divided into localities. So there are urban, rural. Okay, so can you understand what he is trying to say? So there will always be what? Hierarchy of compages which would be existing. And what a geographer has to do, ultimately he may start from a locality, but he has to find the common things and identify the districts. Again, you study several districts, the common things, the common criteria. On the basis of that, we can classify them into provinces and ultimately into realms. Are we clear about this distinction? So, compages always exist at several hierarchies or hierarchical levels. Tell me fast. ठीक है. Pranav is asking, if we combine some parts together, it will become a whole new area. It is not always necessary. And when we are talking about the regional concept, okay, when we are talking about a regional concept, we are essentially talking about a situation where there exists some similarities between the areas which are combined. They cannot be, we just cannot, by our own will, we cannot combine them. There must be some criteria where they should be similar, and on the basis of that they would be combined. Naman here is asking, can residential and industrial areas demarcated in master plan are compages? Yes, they are compages. Like in a city, when we are talking about residential area. So tell me, residential areas, industrial areas, when we are demarcating, they are existing at which of these hierarchical levels? Suppose if you are demarcating in a city several zones, so which of these zones, like if I am demarcating as residential area, so what would be the level at which we are talking about here the compages? It would be very clearly localities. Locality. Okay. So this is basically the idea of compages. Yes. Sonia is saying administrative division blocks, village, sub-district, states are basically compages. Yes, it is true. There the criteria is administrative criteria. Okay. So this is what was the idea of compages. And here I am giving you one question to ponder upon, think upon. We'll solve it now. And this question is, how does the idea of compage differed from traditional regions? And it is to be done in 150 words. I am giving you 3 minutes. 3 minutes to think what should be the answer. Satish, do it in your copy. We'll talk about that. Okay, so we can write this answer. An introduction can be there. In the introduction, we can say that in 1953, Whittle say provided the idea of compage as a region to provide new direction to regional approach. And provide a severe challenge, or to mount a severe challenge to the rising quantitative revolution. So this can be our introduction. Then the main body. The compage as a region differed from traditional regions in many ways. Okay, so if I talk about how they differed, I can even present a chart. Criteria of difference traditional regions and compage. So here one difference was type of region. So in traditional regions, they were more based upon the criteria of uniform regions. criteria of uniform regions. On the other hand, compages were more symbolic of the criteria of functional or nodal regions. ठीक है, functional or nodal regions. Here the focus of study was the framework of relief was the focus of study, and here the focus was the main topic at the center, the main topic which was at the center. ठीक है, here subject matter which was included was the emphasis on area, shape, size and position. While if you talk about here, the subject matter was emphasizing on core and periphery relation. Core and periphery relation. Here the nature of boundary, so in case of the nature of boundary, boundaries are fixed and clearly coincide and identified. Here boundaries are less rigid and focus is on interrelations. Also boundaries are what here? In this case, boundaries are dynamic. That means they can change with time. They are not very fixed. Criteria, if you talk about, the criteria which was chosen was, there was rigid list of topics in number and order. While here variation of topics in number, order and emphasis. Number, order and emphasis. Type of study, here it was more encyclopedic and highly descriptive, while in case of compage it was selective in description and highly analytical. Then place of humans. Place of humans. Here what was? Humans generally neglected as there was preoccupation with physical settings. With physical settings. While if you talk about in this concern with man at the center of study. Man was at the center of the study. ठीक है, core of the study. So this was the basic differences between the idea of compage, how it differed from traditional region. Can you see that if I actually tried to write all this information in sentences, I would have been able to do it in 150 words. Was it possible to complete that in 150 words? Tell me. I would have obviously exceeded the limit which was imposed there, 150 words. ठीक है. So this chart method I so much like it because it is very simple, ज़्यादा सोचना नहीं पड़ता है, and again it is very clear cut, presentable for the reader. It becomes so much easy and it does everything which any other diagram would do. Only shortcoming of this method is you should have good number of points. अगर आपके पास 2-3 ही points हैं suppose, again it wouldn't look good in that case. ठीक है. So here we were able to generate from same point subdivide them into that. ठीक है. Can it be said that compage is mixed of both formal and functional region? It was more related with the functional region. Later as it evolved, we will see that it also mixed some formal aspects when it combined to become the administrative or planning regions. ठीक है. But as it was visualized by Whittlesey in compage, it was mostly a functional region. ठीक है. So that was the difference. And in the conclusion, we can definitely say that we can say that despite his attempt to put regional approach on more modern and applied footings, he could not counter the progress of quantitative revolution. Soon quantitative revolution overshadowed regional approach and dominated geography for nearly next 2 decades. However, compage can be certainly seen as a precursor to the new regional geography, which rose on the ashes of QR after 1970 and became the main approach of geographical studies. ठीक है. So you can see कि although it was not asked, but conclusion is a space where I can show my wisdom to the examiner. बाकी कोई भी part, whether you talk about introduction, whether you talk about the main body, no other part you can write anything what you want to write. You have to just write what has been asked. But conclusion is an area where I can do so. So last part is where if you want to go beyond and show your wisdom, show your knowledge, the only space you have is the conclusion space. So यहाँ पर हमने conclusion में बता दिया कि what was the case. ठीक है. So this was another aspect of regional approach which was there during the period of quantitative revolution, because ये question बहुत you can understand that बहुत probable question है. It is a very very probable question which can be asked anytime. And regional approach का problem ये है, areal differentiation regional approach, if you read from the books with respect to regional approach etc., this is one thing which is not properly synthesized in any of the books. Whether you talk about, चाहे वो दीक्षित की बात करो, चाहे वो you talk about अधिकारी, if you talk about others, no book synthesizes the regional approach so well as we are doing in the class. We are taking all the areas so that even if questions are asked from the trivial areas, we would be in a position to answer them. ठीक है. So are we clear about the regional approach? What was the regional approach in the third phase? So in the third phase, what happened? Geographers tried to ultimately save the regional approach, and they in fact recognized that the world was changing. There was more society which was oriented towards more materialistic things. More it was becoming result oriented society. So they also felt that geography should also, the regional approach should also reflect that. And in this context, very clearly, Whittlesey provided his idea of compage geography. ठीक है. We will see how it became, जो last point मैंने लिखा है, how it ultimately became the precursor of the new regional geographies to come. ठीक है. So can you see that even during the quantitative revolution period, particularly the decade of 1950s, where actually lots of regional geography was practiced, even in Anglo-American geography. ठीक है. So that was one attempt by Whittlesey. Another was during this period, again there remained Carl Sawyer. Carl Sawyer and his Berkeley School. Carl Sawyer and his Berkeley School continued to work on the landscape geography. Landscape geography, which was developed by Sawyer. ठीक है. So again, very clearly they continue to provide several studies of landscape regions. ठीक है. So that was another. Then we can conclude thus in Anglo-American geography. American geography, comma, even during this low period, regional geography or approach did not die. ठीक है. Outside Anglo-America, it continued to flourish in areas like France and Russia. फ्रांस एंड रशिया. ठीक है. सो फ्रांस की अगर हम बात करें तो इन फ्रांस व्हाट वाज द केस? इन फ्रांस रीजनल अप्रोच was firmly established following the Vidalian tradition. So the impact of Vidal was still palpable in France. In case of Russia, adoption of the regional approach was consequence of its huge size, so it was state sponsored, whereby Russian planning agencies divided Russia into several planning regions in order to ensure balanced regional development of Russia. ठीक है. So outside, we can say outside the Anglo-American geography, the regional approach continued to flourish, and outside it was very much applied already. Like Russia, take the case of Russia, it was highly applied. They were mainly focusing upon the development aspects. ठीक है. So are we clear about this phase of regional geography? So during this phase of regional geography, this was how it developed. Now, if I have to write a critique or criticism of this phase, criticism of the third phase, what was the main shortcoming of the third phase? That despite advances and modernization of the regional approach, its votaries could not counter the advances of quantitative revolution. ठीक है. They could not counter the arguments which were presented by the votaries of quantitative revolution. ठीक है. That is the main criticism. Otherwise, what they were saying was very correct. ठीक है. Thus, they failed to showcase the superiority of this modified regional approach. This modified regional approach. So they could not make it popular. They could not show people, even if they were good. Like we will see that what was the idea of Compage, same idea later on we talk about as new regional geography. All the things which Compage talks about, it was there in the new regional geography later on. But Whittlesey could not make it popular. He could not convince people. Probably one of the reason for such failure was that modifications came very late. Modifications came very late. By the time QR had already influenced many young geographers who later became the pioneer of quantitative revolution. ठीक है. So that is the main, actually the thing. 1953 में they were talking about changes. Before that, they were very rigid. Nahi, we have to do full chorology, etc., etc. And when the crisis almost was there, like you know very well, हमारा लॉकडाउन in case of coronavirus. So the lockdown could have been implemented much earlier, in the months of February, when we were busy celebrating Namaste Trump and all those kind of things. But we didn't. So same way, they also, when there was lots of crisis, they saw that in quantitative revolution, in the world war, there was hardly regional geography was able to solve any problems. Hardly it was contributing. That time they didn't think that it needs to change. They begin to think when their own status was challenged in early 1950s. Okay? So they came very late in their changes, and as a result they couldn't had that kind of influence to counter quantitative revolution. Although we can definitely say that, ये point यहाँ पर भी लिख सकते हैं, they were kind of precursor for the new regional geography. ठीक है, so their ideas were adopted later on after the demise of quantitative revolution after since 1970s, early 1970s. ठीक है, so are we clear about the third phase of रीजनल अप्रोच? बंद करता हूँ, अब घबराने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. बट सी, दैट इज़ द नेचर ऑफ रीजनल ज्योग्राफी और रीजनल अप्रोच. आई एम गिविंग लिटिल बिट exhaustiveness to this topic because this topic is not well covered in the books. One, there is not much lack of clarity about regional approach, regional geography. It is something which is very less explained in most of the books. So you can see that हम जो क्लास में जिस तरह से कर रहे हैं, you will not need anything extra. इसके बाहर एक भी चीज़ नहीं चाहिए होगा which would be required. So tomorrow we'll talk about new regional geography. Tomorrow we'll talk about within new regional geography some examples like bioregionalism, etc., etc. ठीक है, which developed in after that is in the fourth phase, and after that we'll talk about the regional synthesis topic. ठीक है, no, there is no need. I will not catch cold because now मेरा AC is in warm phase में चल रहा है वो, so it is not giving me cold. So I am taking precautions. ठीक है, so we'll stop. We'll continue this tomorrow. बाकी टॉपिक्स जो हैं क्वांटिटेटिव रिवोल्यूशन बुक्स में मिल जाता है. इट इज़ वेरी इजी टू कॉम्प्रीहेंड, अंडरस्टैंड, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होती उसमें. थोड़ा सा उसके बाद के टॉपिक्स अगेन आर द टॉपिक्स विच आर नॉट properly given in the class, in the books. So there again we'll do some exhaustive studies like humanistic geography, behavioral geography, radical geography. तो वहाँ पर there would be again like areal differentiation हमें करना पड़ेगा. ठीक है, so we will see. Okay, I'll stop for today. Good night. Take care.